So who the fuck is JD Vance? Now, obviously, I realize that part 6 on a series about JD Vance's life seems like a weird time to ask the question, like, who the fuck is JD Vance? But JD Vance is a weird guy. You see, this whole time, we haven't been talking about JD Vance. Shocking, I know. But I was trying to be respectful to his later in life transition. So far, the person we were talking about was James David Hamill, or JD Hamill. In his book, he implies that he took the surname Vance upon his marriage in 2014. So he took not her name, but his name being his mom's third husband's name, but not his wife's. Anyway, the name change actually occurred in 2013 as he was about to graduate from Yale. After Yale Law School, JD worked for Republican Senator James Corrin. He then has a brief career as a corporate lawyer. So in 2014, while JD was out lawyering, I went from literally mopping the floors at Troma to riding one of the biggest unicorns in Silicon Valley. Uber, baby! I got what was basically a customer service job, except the customer was New York City taxi cab drivers signing up for or currently working with Uber. I was contracted for about 10 months, and then I was a part of the first 6 people in this type of role to become permanent employees at Uber. I got to see firsthand the inner workings of a growing tech behemoth from inside one of the most heavily regulated cities. You may be familiar with Uber and its fight against regulations. I was working alongside many young Ivy League grads who had just come out of post-consulting jobs. I was assisting Goldman Sachs employees and working closely with a multi-million-dollar company that was founded by a couple of Uber drivers who saw that there was more money in renting out taxis than driving them. One such business owner I ran into when I was taking half a day off to be an extra in an opening for SNL. His brother had just become a recent cast member.
It's Saturday Night Live.
Now, I won't show you the opening or tell you who it was, but suffice it to say, I was cut before it went to air, and that was about the closest I ever got to appearing on SNL. So, pathway to the presidency via Al Franken be damned. Anyway, at Uber, I generally kept my left-leaning politics to myself, and I tried to listen carefully to catch the realities hidden under business jargon. Shut down a driver incentive here, close a program there, change a requirement here, and pretty soon we're making real value for our shareholders. What struck me was how similar the experience was to my time working at Kroger in high school. Now, obviously, the customers are worlds apart. They literally hold up stereotypes about each other, and in many ways will likely never become in real contact with each other except in a sort of transactional basis. But the interactions that I was having with them were pretty identical. I was the face of a giant corporation, and they could just walk all over me and air out all of their grievances. And as long as that person felt their grievances were heard in such a way that they would not stop shopping at Kroger or stop driving for Uber, then I did my job as far as Kroger or Uber was concerned. But in those interactions, I found the key to real change. Something so fundamental that it should hang over the entire rest of this series like a dark cloud. It's the most obvious thing in the world to cause change, and yet no one wants to do it. At Uber and most of the companies I ever worked for, there's all this internal chatter from marketing programs to studies to A/B testing to try and learn about a company's patrons. But it rarely involves actually meeting with people and listening. No one wants to actually go out to the customers or where people are signing up and actually talk to them and listen to them. My God, no, we built these giant barriers and walls and hierarchical structures to not have that happen. Why, dear God, would we ever do that? You cannot just go request a meeting with the president. If it did happen, it was generally with guardrails in a pretty clinical survey type environment. Anyone who's done customer service knows just how hard it can be to get anyone in the company hierarchy to actually act on the real concerns of the customers if the top shareholders aren't interested in making that change. So companies ignore them, and then the customers go away, profits go down, and then layoffs start. When it comes to politics, the key is just talking to people. Generally a wide range of people. It's paramount in breaking through an echo chamber that exists more and more today online. The age of social media seems to bend towards constantly texting and emailing and memeing and doing a live stream phone call with a billionaire rather than going to a diner and talking to the actual people that you're trying to get to vote for you, letting a citizen really just come up and chew you out to your face and then you tell them how actually they'd be better off under your policies. And then when that person leaves, they go, you know what, that guy heard me out. Maybe I will vote for him. Or that guy fucking sucks. I'm going to vote for the other guy or write in Mickey Mouse just to spite him.
If he looks like he's very comfortable pouring coffee and greeting customers, it's because he was once a waiter.
As you may have noticed, JD has actually been given this duty lately, and it's become very obvious how detached he is from the voter base that he's supposed to be the oracle for.
Here, well, my wife. Hey guys, how are you all? How you doing? Good. Good to see you guys. I'm sorry, man. Okay, yeah. She doesn't want to be on film, guys, so just cut her out of anything. Appreciate that, man. I'm JD Vance. I'm running for vice president. Good to see you. Okay. Just everything. Yeah, I mean, a lot of glazed here, some sprinkle stuff, some of these cinnamon rolls, just whatever makes sense. All right. You gotta take them off my hands, though, or I'm gonna drop them. I think I'm decided now. Just matters. So
I took them to the debate watch party, and that just flipped like that. Yeah, I mean, they were apathetic, and that's, you know.
It's not about agreeing on every single issue. It's about that core belief. And I said, this whole idea that you can't agree that the election was fair, this whole idea that people should have personal freedoms, which is kind of like the politics are turning over. Yeah, nice meeting you all. Yeah, really grateful you take the time again. Talk to your friends. Some of them are just going to say, look, I'm not that into politics. Yeah. The answer to that is too damn bad. Politics is into you.
It's fun to sit in a basement and just post rage bait and think you're making a political impact. But if you're not making phone calls and canvassing, then when it comes to election day, you're just somehow magically hoping that everyone agrees with you. Then you're either happy or pissed and it's someone else's fault or they cheated. It's like Pauline Kael said, I can't believe Nixon won. No one I know voted for him. If your politics is Twitter posting or Substack blogging, you're basically yelling at your TV during a football game and then taking credit for the plays that work. Some people are basing their entire understanding of politics on the idiots yelling at their TV rather than going into the stands to meet with the fans that go out of their house and come out to be a part of the game. I'm talking to you, JD. As we continue to go through the rest of JD's life, he's going to be listening to a lot of basement TV yellers with grand theories and trying to sell it back to the fans in the stadium who just came out to drink some beer and have a good time. Oh, except I'm not talking about you. You are actually making real political change by watching this video. I promise. Just remember to like and subscribe.
Well, Mr. President, if Bud Wilkinson, our analyst, ever falters, we at ABC may call on you to do our commentary. Excellent.
I'm not thinking, Chris, of what I'm going to do when I finish my present job, but there's nothing I'd like better than to have Bud's job right with you.
In 2015, the Vances moved to San Francisco, where Usha starts a role as an associate at Munger, Tolles & Olson, a law firm later referred to as being the cool woke category. Mr. Vance goes to work at Mithril Capital. Mithril? I don't read Lord of the Rings, so I really don't know. Mithril Capital, an investment firm co-founded by Peter Thiel. In the last part, we heard JD say that he was rescued by many loving people. For his career, there may be no more loving person than Peter Thiel.
Where I work in Silicon Valley, it's hard to see where America has gone wrong. My industry has made a lot of progress in computers and in software. And of course, it's made a lot of money.
After Donald Trump picked JD as his vice presidential candidate, it was reported that his name had been suggested by Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, and David Sacks. Peter Thiel graduated from Stanford with David Sacks, and in 1995 they co-authored the book The Diversity Myth: Multiculturalism and the Politics of Intolerance at Stanford. The book is critical of political correctness in higher education and argues that more intellectual diversity is needed on college campuses. Wait. DEI bad. Intellectual DEI good. And then we cut to Peter Thiel watching this. Yeah! Elon Musk founded PayPal with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel said about the founding of PayPal, in the late 1990s, the founding vision of PayPal centered on the creation of a new world currency, free from all government control and dilution. In that same article published for Cato Unbound, Peter Thiel says, the hope of the internet is that these new worlds will impact and force change on existing social and political order. The limitation of the internet is that these new worlds are virtual and that any escape may be more imaginary than real. The open question, which will not be resolved for many years, centers on which of these accounts of the internet proves true. And then there's Tucker Carlson, who sucks, and I'm sure if I really cared I could find some Thiel connection, but I didn't bother to, so let's move on. In 2017, JD joins the investment firm Revolution LLC, founded by Steve Case, who previously co-founded AOL. Vance is tasked with the Rise of the Rest Initiative, which focuses on growing investments in underserved regions outside of Silicon Valley and New York City. In 2018, our hometown hero returns and he purchases a $1.4 million home in Cincinnati. He's finally made it. Now he can do what he's always said that he was going to do, especially in his book, Hillbilly Elegy. He's going to give back to the community. He's going to save the people that he grew up with. So he starts a nonprofit called Our Ohio Renewal, a 501c4 advocacy organization that focuses on education, addiction, and other social ills. A report by Business Insider would reveal that Our Ohio Renewal's tax filings showed that in its first year, it spent more on management services provided by its executive director, Jay Shabria, than it did on programs to fight opioid abuse. Jay Shabria would also be Vance's top political advisor. Our Ohio Renewal is shut down in less than 2 years. At this time in 2018, Vance considers running for the Senate against Sherrod Brown. You may remember Sherrod Brown as the Ohio senator to be one of the lone voices that had spoke out against the Iraq War and also spoke out against NAFTA in the 90s. Vance decides not to run against him. Instead, he's convinced by Peter Thiel to convert to Catholicism.
Christianity, the main religion of the Western world, it always takes the side of the victim, and there's something where it is like some kind of deformation or intensification, and maybe you should think of wokeness as ultra Christianity or hyper Christianity.
An extreme form of Christianity, unlike, say, Catholicism. So while Vance is back in Cincinnati, he founds Narya Capital with the financial backing of Peter Thiel and some other rich assholes we don't really have time for, like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt and Mark Andreessen. The investment was worth it because in 2020, JD raises $93 million. 2020. It seems like something else was happening in 2020 besides Richmond consolidating their wealth. It's okay, I'm vaxxed. Well, I can say that in the economic downturn from COVID-19, I got laid off from a Silicon Valley company.
I know that this is incredibly hard to hear.
Luckily, at that point, I avoided being unemployed and quickly got a job from a friend. He was working with a catering service that had pivoted to making and delivering meals on behalf of New York City to those affected by COVID. In the end, we were delivering about 1,000 meals a day, 6 days a week to all 5 boroughs. Not the same as raising $93 million for a venture capitalist firm, but you know. But if you really want to control the future, then there are periods in human history when money is not enough, to quote Trinidadian historian C.L.R. James in his book, The Black Jacobins. Or if you'd like a more current quote, from Twitter user Internet Hippo from a deleted post, "Funniest thing that money does to your brain is trick you into thinking that you're good at everything." Tech billionaires are on here posting what they think are profound political insights, and it's 8th grade level stuff.
Everyone wants to know whether JD's gonna run for office.
Who's everyone?
Everyone. Just everyone. Trust me. I speak to them.
Okay.
What do you think? Should he run for office?
I think someday, if the time is right, and if he really feels that that's the best way that he can contribute to his home, then I think that would be a great idea.
Why do you get uncomfortable when that idea comes up?
I think that, when people ask me if I want to run for office, part of me wonders, do they think I just give off a used car salesman vibe? Used car salesman vibe. Used car salesman vibe.
Don't you think it's more born of hope that you could be a real change agent?
Yeah, no, I think that's the optimistic take on it. I'm very flattered when people ask me, and you never say never, but it's just not something that I think about doing right now.
In March 2021, Peter Thiel gets even more involved in JD's life. He asks Usha if he can move his bed in between theirs in the master bedroom, and he gives $10 million to Protect Ohio Values, a super PAC created that February to support a potential Vance candidacy. So JD decides it's finally time to make a run for the Senate. And I decide I'm going to go to law school, a coding boot camp, just like everyone else did during quarantine.
Anybody who can throw coal into a furnace can learn how to program, for God's sake.
They have launched a campaign telling those who are unemployed to just go out and find something new. It's just that easy, Sagar. Just go find something new.
After winning the most expensive Ohio primary of all time at $75 million, Our boy is finally running to be the Republican Party's Senate candidate in the 2022 midterms.
JT to the rescue! JT to the rescue!
And with all that incoming attention onto him and his life, he's going to have to finally start having a more definitive ideology than we've seen so far. So let's dive in. Vance stated around this time that he believes a well-educated and culturally liberal American elite has greatly benefited from globalization, the financialization of our economy, and the growing powers of big tech. This has led an Ivy League intellectual and management class, a quasi-aristocracy he calls the regime, to adopt a set of economic and cultural interests that directly oppose those of people in places like Middletown, Ohio, where he grew up. In the Vancian view, this class has no stake in what people on the new right often call the real economy, the farm and factory jobs that once sustained middle-class life in Middle America. This is a fundamental difference between new right figures like Vance and the Reaganite right-wingers of their parents' generation. To Vance, and he said this, culture war is class warfare. Okay, so there's this group of Ivy League intellectuals and management class elites that have benefited financially from globalization. Let's call them the elites, the regime, the bourgeoisie, who are separated from the real material economy of farm and factory jobs. Let's call them the proletariat. Well, the financial interest of this upper class is opposed to that of the lower class, okay, and they're alienated from the work that they do for the upper class. So in order to stop this, we must outlaw abortion, let Donald Trump become king, and then view the genitals of every high schooler who wants to play sports. And this will save the economy and punish the elites by cleansing Germany of Marxism. To accomplish taking on these vile elites, Vance offered his highest donors the chance to dine with him and then one of the richest men in Silicon Valley, his new billionaire sugar daddy.
Silicon Valley is supposed to be, they're supposed to care about climate. They're supposed to be, pro-science and rational and libertarians. So normally libertarians don't like authoritarians. What's up with that? I think it's actually, we've made it way too complicated. It's super simple. These are very rich men who have decided to back the Republican Party that tends to do good things for very rich men.
Peter Thiel ends up giving $15 million through super PACs to Vance's campaign. Vance is endorsed by only one sitting U.S. Senator, Josh Hawley, another recipient of Thiel's money, including hundreds of thousands of dollars when he was still the Attorney General of Missouri before his own Senate run.
Big finance, big tech, Wall Street, the biggest corporations, the universities, the media, and the government. There is not a single institution in this country that conservatives currently control. But there is one of them, just one, that we might have a chance of actually controlling in the future. And that's the constitutional republic that our founders gave us. We are never going to take Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and turn them into conservative institutions. We are never going to take the universities in this country and turn them into conservative institutions. But we might, if we work hard and we make good arguments, we might just be able to control the democratic institutions in this country.
It should be noted that Peter Thiel was the first outside investor into Facebook and that he was on the board of Meta until 2022. And I would think that he's the type of person that comes to mind when you hear big tech or big finance. Vance gets the endorsement of Donald Trump and becomes the only candidate funded by Trump's PAC in the 7 statewide general election races of the 22 midterms to actually win. So the Oracle of Ohio is finally going to Congress. He's going to represent us hard-working class people. Finally, we're going to take on the elites. He's a big boy now. He gets us and he's going to fight for us. Yay, Mountain Dew and Ohio. Here's a clip of Vance showing off his excellent political instincts to make a prediction before he actually became the junior senator from Ohio.
Here's a situation. Let's say Roe versus Wade is overruled. Ohio bans abortion. In 2022 or let's say 2024. And then, every day George Soros sends a 747 to Columbus to load up disproportionately black women to get them to go have abortions in California. And of course, the left will celebrate this as a victory for diversity. That's kind of creepy.
Health justice is when we exterminate working class black people.
Yeah. Something like that could, that would be a really weird turn of events that could happen, yes.
And it's like, if that happens, do you need some federal response to prevent it from happening? Because it's really creepy.
Yes. that made-up scenario would be creepy, especially if I was the type of person who just spends all day online creating up conspiratorial fantasies in my head just to make myself mad. That would really piss me off. The point is, he's supposed to be the guy that understands Ohio. He's going to speak up for us and take on the godless elites. Yet, JD did not even need to wait until 2024 because in November of 2023, 1 year after he became a senator, Ohio had Issue 1, which resulted in abortion rights being upheld in Ohio. And not only slightly, but by 57%. In fact, Ohio's Issue 1 was the first time since the Dobbs decision that voters of a red state were asked whether to enshrine abortion protections in their state constitution. As such, the referendum's approval was widely interpreted as evidence for a national consensus in favor of broad abortion rights. Some conservative political analysis and commentators called a continued alliance with the anti-abortion movement untenable and an electoral disaster, and urged the party to adopt a more pro-choice stance on the issue. The county that he grew up in and the county that I grew up in both voted yes on Issue 1.
If people see Republicans not as the party that's trying to make it easier to have babies, but is just trying to take people's rights away, then we're going to lose.
So less than a year after he couldn't have been more wrong about Ohioans, J.D. Vance is chosen to back up Donald Trump as the Republican Party's vice presidential candidate, ensuring that in the 2024 presidential election, the Republicans are definitely going to win Ohio, a state they were going to win anyway. Woo!